Welcome back to our first session in Kali Linux. So first of all, I opened VirtualBox. I show you the screen and started running my virtual machine. Then I received the login prompt and I logged in with my details, and now I'm in my Kali Linux machine. In today's session I will show you a few basic commands, and we will use these commands many times later. There are more commands on the slides. I'm not sure whether I will cover each and every command in full detail. Let me just open a terminal. So just click up here, we open the terminal. To get rid of any old messages, you just type in clear and it should clear the screen. It might be useful maybe to adjust the size a little bit just for recording purpose. That might make it easy. We can also zoom using Control and Shift and at the same time equal to sign or plus plus. That zooms. We can zoom maybe a little bit more like this. That should be fine. First, it's important to know who you are as a user. So once you log in, you will not be logged in as the root user, because the root user has a special privilege. So the standard login will give you a user who is not permitted to make major changes to the operating system. If we don't know what we are, we just type in ID, execute that, and it will tell you who you are. So obviously I'm logged in as captain, and this is what I obtain. So I'm the captain. Now, if I want to switch user and want to have more privilege, I just type in sudo, and you see always here autocomplete happening. It's partly based on commands you used before. And then I type in su for switch user. So sudo is our super user, and if you execute that, it will ask you for a password. So here we are, password for captain, and then you have to hopefully remember it. I'll just type it in and execute, and now as you can see we are renamed. So it changes from Captain Kali to Root Kali. Yeah, it doesn't look too friendly. And here we are. So now we have root privilege and we can do anything we want. Now, quite often this is not what we actually like to have, because if we now make any silly mistake, it will have potentially quite a serious impact. And in particular, if we now execute a file that contains a virus, it has access to the whole system. So usually we don't operate as the root user. Yeah, that's not very common. So to exit the root user, you just type in exit and you should be back. Here we are. So we have done all the basics. Good. Next, it's useful to check your so-called SSH keys. SSH will be relevant once we start communicating between machines in a network. SSH stands for a secure shell network protocol. So we should know what kind of keys we use in this setting. So how do we get access to that? We get access by moving to the etc SSH folder, and we use a change directory command. And you see it's already auto completed here, but I just want to type it out. So we do this /etc/ssh and execute that. So cd is a change directory, which actually also works on Windows. Yeah, so you will realize that many commands are very similar in the Windows prompt. Yeah, so when you go here to your CMD, to your Windows prompt, just type in cd, it will already do something. Yeah, it will go to your home directory by default. Yeah, so many things work as well. The reason why it works is because this actually comes from the Unix operating system, and it was then further developed into Linux, but some commands also work in Windows, but you will see some differences between them. Another example for that is, for instance, the standard command dir for directory, which works nicely in Windows, and you get all the files in your home directory, and in Unix it would be ls, and again it will work. Yeah, so many things do work in both. Not of course all of it, but there are some similar commands, and this is because of the legacy of Unix basically. Okay, we close that. So back to our captain in Kali. So now once we are in this folder, we can always anyway check where we are just typing in pwd. So pwd is basically printing out the current directory. So where are we? So we are now in etc ssh. Now I'm sure you will be used to graphical user interfaces that give you kind of a Windows Explorer kind of feel, and of course you can do something similar on Kali. So when you go here, you of course see the structure of your folders and files. However, it's quite useful to learn how to do it in the terminal, because when you have access to a shell, you might not have the option for a graphical user interface, because many servers don't actually install it. Yes, you might not have a graphical user interface. So it is actually a better idea to learn these commands and to learn how to manipulate the structure. Good. So now we are in this etc ssh folder, and we can type in ls. ls basically lists all the items in this folder. We can just have a little look, and you see now items in blue. The items in blue are directories. The other items are files. Now if you want to have more overview, it's sometimes useful to use an option with the ls command, using the minus sign and L for the long list view. And if you execute that, you see that all the blue ones are directories. You see dr in front, yeah, so that's another directory, another one. And then you have various files, yeah, and these files contain the SSH keys. So when you start, you should copy your old SSH files into the old keys folder, which actually initially doesn't exist. Yeah, so in my case I already have done that, and if you look at the slides, it tells you how to set that up. So this is something which I would recommend, and then I would always try to get new keys which would be then stored in this main directory. Now if we want to have a little look at the old files, we can also move into this. So again cd, and then we go into old keys. It should move into that, and now we are in here. We can just pwd, we can check that. So this is where we are. We are now in old keys, in the old keys directory, and we can type in ls. Again, we can do -l, which gives me the view of a list of all the items. So that's quite useful, and you see you have multiple files. Yeah. Now if we want to read one of these files, there are different commands for reading files. One command which I quite like is the less command, and then just the name of a file. Now the less command lets you navigate through the file using the up and down arrow. So that's one way to do it, or using space. So that's kind of quite convenient. So let me just try to have a look at one of these keys. So let me just type in this one, the first one, host. I should of course spell it correctly. ECDSA key. Let me just try that. So can I read it? And you see permission denied. Here we are. Yeah, so we don't have permission to view the SSH key, because there is a security element to it. Now what do? Well, we already know what to do. We change into the root user. So we type in sudo su, and here we are. We already typed in the password once, so it will now execute that, and we are now in the root user identity, and hopefully now we should have permission to read this file. So we could do that, and you see, do you wish to see all? Okay, 128 lines. Well, we just want to say yes here, and here we are. So where are we? Oops, that is, yeah, no, I navigated wrongly, sorry. Let me just type that out. It should give me straight the file. ASD key. Here we are, and you see this very longish key, which well, doesn't tell you much, but actually this is one of these SSH keys, an old one, of course. We generated new ones, which you can now view. Good. Now we have done quite a few things. We looked into different users. We created SSH keys, and we stored the old keys in this old key directory. Now we can close that and maybe have another look at the structure. What I want to do now is I want to create a few files, move things around, doing some copy and moving action, and just see how we are executing that. So let me just open that. I just clear. Then I use Control Shift and equal to zoom a little bit to make that easier. Let me just move that so you should see this at the same time. So that's my structure. Again, I can have a little look where I'm located. I'm now in home captain, so that's the default. If you navigate to another folder, you can always go back to your home directory, just typing in cd without anything. Yeah, if you just type cd, it goes to the home, or cd tilde does exactly the same. It goes to the home as well. Yeah, you can do both. You can use cd without anything, or cd tilde. It will move to your home directory. Now, if we are in my home directory, we can just have a little look. So we have, for instance, here documents, which is a folder. So if you do ls and L as an option, we should get now our different folders. So we could move further into documents, could explore that. Again, it is, you will see it's anyway all empty. Now we can just stay here for the time being. Before we start creating some random files, just for the sake of it, it is quite interesting and useful to identify your IP address, because in the end we will use that later to identify machines. Yeah, so if you just type in IP A, it should give you the information, and here we are in this part, in the part which starts with ETH0. You find further down your IP address. That's the one. So it starts with INET, so INET, and this number here is your IP address. Yeah, so that's kind of nice to know. Good, so we have covered this as well. Now what I think would be a nice idea is just to start with a few, little bit maybe silly new files. Let's just do this. First thing I want to do is I want to create a folder. To create a folder, you use the make directory command. So it's mkdir, and I just now make a directory. I just call this the test directory. Yeah. If you do this, let me see. You see now popping up here our new test directory. Of course, there's nothing in there, but it's just now for fun. If you want, you can at the same time create several directories and also a parent directory as well. So we can also do this. I just do this for the fun of it. So here I do, I just call this now parent directory 1. Let's call this parent directory 1. And I might do a second one, not entirely sure. Let's just do this, and I have to use the option P for parent directory, and I use parent directory 2. So I think that should be okay. Let me just have a look what it does. Okay, permission denied. Okay, let me see. Let's go back. Here we are. Yeah, had one too many. And now we should see up here my parent directory 1. If you click there, there's another one which is parent directory 2. Yeah, of course they're all empty right now. It's not massively exciting, but we created this directory. Okay, that's useful. So now we created a few of these directories. The next thing which would be nice to do is to create inside these directories a few files. Let's just maybe move into one of these. So I just do a change directory and we move into the test directories. Shall we do that? So now we are in this one, in the test directory, which is now currently empty, and we use the touch command to create a file, and I just call this file, just standard text file, doesn't matter, yeah, file txt, that's it. Here we are. So we have now a text file. We can try to read this text file. There are different ways to read files. We can use the cat command, we can use the less command, we can do a head, we can do a tail if we just want to read a few lines just to check whether that's the right file. So there are different options to that. In our case, of course, the file is anyway empty. There's not much to read, yeah, so it doesn't do anything. Okay, but in principle, we know how to create a file. Okay, so now again, I might like to move back. So I now use this to move back to my home. So again, I just want to check WD, and I'm in home captain again. So I moved up here. And let me now move down into this parent folder. So I just say cd, and we move into the parent directory 1. Let's just move there. have a little look. ls -l, and let's have a look. So we just know there's another directory in there, so we are now just moving in here. We can move further down, we can also stay here, it doesn't really matter now for this exercise. And I use again touch, and I create one more file, and now I use the curly brackets because I want to create several files at the same time, and I just want to name them, just a few of them, and close that and do the extension and see what happens. And see, now we have 7 files created. This is actually quite convenient. Yeah, so that's pretty nice. Good, so we have now all these exciting files created. We have to of course now start removing them, I guess, because they are quite a little bit useless. Good. Now how to copy. Before we delete, it might be useful to copy some of these. We could, for instance, now take one of these files, and again it always depends where you are. So if we just now do the ls -l again, now we have all these files. So we are in this directory here, and I can now copy this to, say, my home directory. Yeah. I just want to copy one of these, otherwise it's getting a little bit messy. So what I do is to copy, I use cp, then the file name, and then the destination. So it would be then file1 txt, and our destination would be simply the home. The home is in our case just tilde, that would work, and here we are. Okay, cd tilde, let's do this ls, and you see now file1 is copied. Yeah, so we have now file1 sitting here, and also we have file1 below in the parent directory as well. So we now copied this to our home directory, using this shortcut, which is kind of, yeah, that's quite handy, isn't it? Yeah, so again, you know, you can play around a little bit and examine these things, start to copy things back and forth, and see what happens. Now, the other thing we could do is we could move some files. So that's not copying, that's moving. So if we say we go back in here, so we do a change directory, and we go into parent directory 1, and we are here, and now we use mv for moving or renaming. It does actually both. So we just take one of these files, let's take file2 txt, and I want to move it to my home directory. Okay, now you see it disappeared, and when I go up here, I have it up here. So that's pretty great. Yeah. Now I show you something else which is a little bit tricky. It's different from what you're used to when you work in Windows. So if you just do the same again, so if we do the mv commands, I want to move a file, I just now take file1 txt, which already exists on my home, and if I execute that, let's see what happens. And it's executed. Yeah, so it's executed, so you see it disappears here, it comes here, but now what happens is it would overwrite the existing file1, which I already copied before. As long as I want this behavior, that is fine. Yeah. However, if I don't want this behavior, I would like to have an option that would ask me if this happens, and I can do this by using the I option, and I'll show you this in a minute. Yeah, so let's just do another copy. So I'm currently still in this directory. I do cp, so I copy a file, I copy file3 file3.txt into home. So just execute that. So when I go now to my file, I have it up here. And now I want to move file3 again into my home directory. Let me just do that, txt. And that would now simply overwrite. Yeah, and I want to make sure that if that happens, I will get a message that will basically ask me, do I want to do this? So I use -i, which is an option, and I would in this case stand for interactively. And here you see, do you want to overwrite the existing file? And if you say no, it doesn't do it. If you say yes, it does it. So it is kind of a good idea sometimes to build that option in to make sure you don't overwrite things which you don't want to overwrite. Yeah. Good. All right. Now we have created lots of these exciting files. How to get rid of them? Well, we can simply use the rm command, which gets rid of files. So for instance, in here, in this particular directory, I can just do something like this. We have 3.txt, so that should get rid of it. Yeah, that's it. And we can just continue doing that. We can also do a shortcut version. Now we have 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's all gone. Then we have parent directory, and as you can see, that's an empty directory. There's nothing in there. So we could remove that with the standard command for removing directories, which is the rm command for directories. So idea, and it would be parent army directory 2, and it's gone. Yeah, so as long as it's empty, that works. If it's not empty, that would not work. Yeah, so that's important to note. So I can do the same now for my home directory. So I go back to home. So I'm up here, pwd. So I'm now, oops, here we are. I was a bit too quick. Home captain. So in here, I also want to get rid here of my parent directory 1, and it's removed, so that's pretty nice. Good. I have still my test directory, and the test directory at the moment is also empty. Yeah, it's not empty, so we can try that. So let's see what happens if I want to remove it. Test directory, and you see it's not permitted because directory is not empty. Okay. In this particular case, we can use rm option -r test directory and try that again, and you see it goes. Yeah, so that's another way of removing a directory where you have other files in it. If this is what you want to do, one always has to be careful. Okay, we have a few more files to remove. Okay, let's do that. So we have file 1, 2, 3 txt, and we also remove them. So now we actually have it all cleaned nicely. So yeah, that's all gone. So that's pretty good. So we should be ready for the next moves. So now we covered a few basic things about working with files and directories, a few basic commands. There are a few more options I want to explore with ls. So we know that ls will give me a list of items. If I use the L option, it gives me this list of items. But apart from these visible directories or files, you also have a few which are hidden. So there you can use another option which you can just add like this, option A, which shows you the hidden files. And in particular, the one which is interesting is this set as hash history. Originally this was also called the bash history, but that has changed after some updates of Kali Linux. Now this history basically shows you what you have done in a session. Yeah, so that's quite interesting to read. So if we now use again, we can use the, also maybe for a change, the head command. Let's use the head command, and let's just look at the first, say, 10 commands I used in this set as hash history file. It will show me what I have done right at the beginning of my session here. So I have done some config stuff. This actually was done way before we had our session. If I go for tail, it looks at the last, say, 10 commands. So again, I go into set as hash history and execute that, and here we are. So these are the last commands I used. Yeah, so that looks pretty nice. So that can be interesting if you want to explore what a user has done. And that, of course, might be interesting also from a security perspective. Good, so I think I covered most important things. There are always some more options you have. For instance, here you have the option T, which is basically gives you the timing of files. So if you have, for instance, a new file created here, just call this file new, just also a text file, doesn't matter. So if you create a new file, for instance, and you want to check and list, you see you can also use the options separately. If you want, you can combine them. It also works, and you see now this file created right now comes up first, yeah, because it was created first. Another interesting thing is you can reverse the order. So you can do something like RTL, yeah, and that is changing the order, this reverse order, and you see now I can combine all the option into one statement. This is a matter of preference actually. Now again, I remove this, so rm, and I take my file new txt and get it done. Good. So I think this is all for this first session, and in the next unit we go a lot deeper into it. I just want to point out, and you see this in the slides, there are quite a few useful books on Kali Linux. It's actually very well covered. You find quite a lot of literature, academic literature as well, but also lots of books written by practitioners. So there's plenty to explore. It's much better documented compared to Tails, for sure, which is a bit surprising. In the case of Tails, I only came across one academic paper that looked into security issues and looked into issues of identification of users, for instance. Good, this is all for this session. I see you in Unit 6.